punters in the greater Cleveland area history. It is Dave Zastudil. Dave, how you doing?
Good, guys. How are you?
We're doing well.
Dave, Steve Becker hit me up. He said, I said, Dave Zastudil was my former teammate. He was like, shut up. You know Dave Zastudil. So apparently you are a rock star to our Steve Becker down in Atlanta. And I said, yeah, man. Dave Zastudil was the first All-American we had. I don't know how we felt about that. That means we was punting the ball a whole lot. But he was the first All-American that we had at an OU. So yeah, man, they got to retire your jersey. Did they retire that yet?
No, I don't think so. But I think it's funny when you're going up and down Ohio University back when we were there, and you see my jersey hanging in the bookstores. You're like, man, for a punter to be in there, it was definitely something else. But it's kind of flattering going back now and telling my kids about it. It's kind of fun. But at the time, it's just like, yeah, maybe we got to get this offense going a little bit more.
Well, based off that same line of thinking, Dave, according to Wikipedia and one other source, you hold 2 NFL records. You have the most punt yards ever in a season and the most punts down inside the 20 in one season. That means the offense wasn't good in Arizona, frankly. So do you take those records with a little grain of salt, or do you say, hey, I did my job, the rest of the offense, you guys kind of stunk?
Yeah, we struggled a little bit, I think in 2012. Now, the inside the 20, a guy named Johnny Hecker, I believe he's still playing, a great punter. I think he actually beat that record a few years ago. So it was fun while it lasted. But, it's funny. They give you these game balls, right? And they gave some record. It said most punts inside the 20. And I hung it up on my shelf for a little while. And then when he beat it, unfortunately, it's up in the attic now. But for those couple of years, it was fun to have.
Dave, you were with the Browns a handful of years. What is your best or worst memory of being in Cleveland during some pretty lean years?
Well, my worst memory is seeing how much younger and less gray hair I had on that picture right there compared to now. But I think the best memory was, for me, was just getting signed in the free agency of 2006. Phil Savage came over from Baltimore, and he was pretty instrumental in drafting me in Baltimore. And just coming home. I mean, I grew up going to Municipal Stadium with my dad. We had 3 tickets when I was a kid. We were right behind those big poles. You're looking behind left and right and watching the field. And, it's a dream come true to play for your hometown team. And, I think the first game we played that year was New Orleans Saints at home. We opened up against them, and just running out of that tunnel, realizing that you actually, made it onto your childhood dream team was a blessing. It was great to have family and friends there. I was an Ohio University kid, a Bay Village kid. So, staying in the state of Ohio, it gave me a lot of motivation to want to do the best I could to put, the team in the best field position. I know that's my job, but when it's your hometown team that you care so much about, sometimes I put a little too much stress on myself. But I think that opening game in New Orleans was my best memory. Probably the worst memory was that 2007 season when we went 10-6 and we didn't sneak in the playoffs. I thought we had a really good team. I thought the chemistry was there. We had great leaders like Joe Jaravicius, Jamal Lewis. I played with Jamal in Baltimore, and we just kind of had that feeling that this could be a magical run if we could get in the playoffs. And unfortunately, there was something where Jim Sorgi didn't play and Indianapolis lost or something to that effect. Yep. But that was a bad memory because I think we had something going. I think that could have really helped us into the next season if we could have made a little splash in the playoffs.
Z, a lot of people know. I mean, you were a great athlete. Like even at OU, we had these clean combos, and I'm like, man. They had all these 3 push press. Coach Ethan Reeves would have us do.
Ethan.
We didn't even bench like that. We was like, no, we don't bench. We power clean. Like he was an Olympic guy, and Z used to put up some weight on the power clean. I'm like, man, that's the doggone punter. Before you got to OU, when did you play any other positions besides that, and what were those positions? And when did you kind of know, like, okay, you could punt at a high level and you could probably go to college for punting? When did that kind of hit you?
Yeah, and it kind of ties into what's going on with parents these days where they're trying to focus their kids on one sport only. And I I tend to disagree with that. I think that all these other sports can help you in your best sport, or help you, create better high-end, hand-eye coordination, etc. But I'll get to that later. But to answer your question, GB, I was a 3-star athlete in high school. I played baseball 4 years. On varsity, I played basketball. I quit my senior year to focus on football and baseball, and I feel bad about that. I wish I would have played. But, football was a 3-year varsity starting quarterback. We won the conference my senior year. Had a really good team. And then what happened is my sophomore, junior year, Coach Kaiser, he's a legend in Bay Village. He was in the Hall of Fame recently. And he says, hey, I need a punter. And I was a young guy, and what he did is we went to the practice fields, and we, took the width of the field, and he said, hey, I want to see who can punt it to the other side. So we had these juniors and seniors on the team that barely made it to the other side, and I came up and I hit it halfway up the trees that were behind there, and he says, well, I found my punter. So I knew from when I was a kid playing Little League soccer, I had a strong left leg, and I felt I was a good athlete. I wasn't, the best quarterback in the world. I wasn't the best baseball player in the world, but when I was a kid, I could easily adapt any sport, and I thought I was pretty good at them. So punting is if you look at the punters in the NFL, I mean, they're typically bigger guys, stronger guys, former quarterbacks, linebackers, believe it or not. And that hand-eye coordination, be able to, get that flexibility, do those things, you typically have a little bit more of size and an athletic background to do that. And a perfect example I always tell people is Tom Tupa. Tom was Ohio State quarterback, played at Arizona, big, tall guy, strong. And that's kind of the difference between a little bit more of a punter and a kicker. I just think is the background of how punters develop is different, because I think if you ask many punters we worked with, or I played with, they wish they were playing another position, and I always did too.
I got your high school stats here, Dave, in case anyone was wondering. But you threw for 2,264 yards, 806 as a senior, 8-2 record as the starting quarterback. So more than just a punter. Dave, my question though.
We like to run the ball. But I did not throw an interception my senior year. So that's my biggest stat I hold on to.
Hey.
Well, you're talking to an Avon Lake alum, so you beat my guys for the conference title back in '97, right? Were you
it might be the last time we beat Avon Lake, though.
Dave, you played for 3 different NFL teams. I couldn't get the exact number of special teams coordinators you played for, but there were plenty. The Browns just signed Bubba Ventrone to come in and hopefully fix their special teams unit. How much of a difference can a new special teams coach make on the entire unit, the punting, the kicking, the return game, stopping the return game? How much difference can a guy like Bubba Ventrone have on the team in year one as a new special teams coach?
Well, it's funny you say that. I texted Bubba because I played with him, and I just said, hey, I haven't talked to him in a long time. I said, Bubba, congratulations. I'm really excited. If you want to get together, I'm here. And by the way, this is Dave Zastudil. We played together, and I kind of put the years. And he goes, Dave, do you honestly think I forgot about our time together? I just spit out my beer or something like that, my Coke or something like that. He's like, come on, man, we had the greatest special teams unit in the league that year. And it was kind of a funny text back. But, Coach Prefer, I played against him for many years, got a lot of respect for him, but sometimes change is needed, and the Browns felt that this way. And Bubba, when I played with Bubba, and his reputation in the league was the guy was very smart. He was a guy that went out and studied film a ton. He had a lot of people follow his lead because he was such an extroverted guy on the special teams field that, people kind of gravitated around Bubba. And Bubba was undersized, yet he made key plays and made plays that we couldn't even believe he made. So whenever you have that kind of personality, that personality can kind of fill up a room, and people can come in and say, hey, I want to follow that guy. He's leading by example. He's been there. He's done that. And I think his success in Indianapolis was a big reason why the Browns said, hey, this is a young guy. He played the position. He knows the position. And sometimes when you play positions in the NFL, there's so many conversations that go on during the game in the locker room, in the film room, of things that could get bypassed if you hadn't had that experience, played it yourself. And so I think that experience with Bubba is going to really help this team. But I think his energy is really what's going to take this special teams unit. Because quite frankly, guys, I'll be honest with you, and you guys know this probably as good as anybody, nobody comes in the NFL and wants to be a special teams player. They want to earn a job as a defensive back, as a linebacker. They want to get on that field. But if you have a guy that gets those guys to buy in, Now you have a third of the program, offense, defense, special teams that's contributing. And if your special teams is in a top 5 in the unit, Baltimore consistently had a great unit under Jerry Rosburg. It impacts and probably could get you 2 to 3 more wins a year.
Dave, when you were punting, it seemed to be the rule was for returners, put your heels on the 10-yard line and don't back up. And if it goes over your head, let it go. That's not the case anymore. The guys are fielding punts at the 5, at the 3. Why did that change? And how is it that you guys spin these balls so that you can down them like on impact? It's almost like a golfer hitting a flop shot. That thing just hits and sticks now. What kind of spin do you have to put on the ball in order to be able to do that?
Well, I'll answer your question in a minute, but it's funny you say that because if you look at my stats on inside the 20 compared to touchbacks until I got to Arizona, they were not nearly as good. And when I got into Arizona, I started working on this end over end kick. They call it the Aussie rules kick. It just was so new. I think Darren Bennett came over as a punter from Australia in 1995. He was the only one that did it. The problem is special teams coaches were trained for so long to see that nose over spiral punt that when they saw this kind of punt, they thought you mishit it. And so finally over time, people were slowly doing it. Shane Leckler was an excellent punter at it and a few other guys. So I didn't really even have a chance to do that punt until I got to Arizona. And I wish I had it in Cleveland. I think I could have been a lot more, more dangerous than I was. But, to answer your question, in the old days, you would try to coffin corner the kick or you try to hit it high and hope you got a good bounce. Nowadays, punters are so good at that kick. It's like a golf swing. It's like being, 50 yards out from the hole or, even 70 yards out. They know how much harder they have to hit it and from what yard line, the 45, 50, 40-yard line. So in the old days, heels at the 10 because that ball would hit and it'd probably go in the end zone because of the way the punt was. Now with that backward spin, guys are so good at it, you're going to hit the 8-yard line, 7-yard line, and that's going to stick and maybe slowly bounce. We used to say 1 out of every 3 punts could go in the end zone. So you got 2/3 of these balls that are probably going to stick inside that 20. So I think guys are taking more of a chance to try to make some kind of return out of it inside the 10 than letting it hit and die or slowly roll inside the 4 or 5.
Do you hold it differently? Like this stuff fascinates me. It's my brain was just weird. But do you hold it differently? How do you get that flop to it?
Yeah, so there's 2 ways to hold it. I'll try to do it best I can on screen. Is some guys just put the ball here and they hold it down and they drop the nose. And if this is the football, they're going to hit it towards the bottom, a little bit above the bottom of the ball to get that. You still got to get power into the kick. Some guys hold it like this, and the ball comes straight down, and they still hit that bottom part. The problem is you don't hit the very bottom of the ball because then you're not going to get much meat on the ball, and it's just going to spin, spin, spin. You still have to hit it, part of the meat side of it, but that angle of the drop is so critical to get that distance and spin.
That
and it's very technical, but it just takes a lot of practice.
And one more for me, what happened to barefoot kickers? Why don't we have barefoot? I know you were a punter, but what happened to the barefoot kicker? Why aren't they a thing anymore?
Yeah. What Rich Carlos was the one we always remember from Denver, but I don't know. That's a good question. The only way I can think of it is, when I played, we always wore a shoe size of a size or size and a half smaller on our foot so we could get the tightest feeling on that foot from our shoe. Back then, they probably had really heavy shoes that were bulky, big, and the kicker probably just didn't feel like he was getting a good feel of the ball off his foot. So he just said, hey, man, I'm going to go barefoot where I can really feel it. I know where to hit it. And my guess, it was probably just because the technology of shoes back then wasn't what it is like today. But that's just a pure guess. But I don't know, man. Those guys would go out in snow and cold and sleet.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's like kicking a bowling ball sometimes in those weather.
We would do it as kids, right? So you see them do it. So you run out, you take your shoe off, and you kick the ball, and instant tears in your eyes. It hurts so bad. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah. Like we played the infamous Snow Bowl versus Buffalo, and Phil Dawson made those unbelievable field goals. I mean, it was so cold and windy that, the ball was just such a rock. And I can't even imagine going out there and Phil kicking that thing or punting that thing with, barefoot, let alone, no sleeves or what have you. But I don't get it. I just know I would never do it.
Z, there's a guy out there, Matt Razor from San Diego State, and obviously he's been embroiled in a lot of different things. It looks like he was accused of some things about assault, but Looks like those things have been retracted, and he's been vindicated. They call him the punt god. Now, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch him play or if you've scouted him coming out of San Diego State. If you could kind of give us his skill set and what makes him so good, that'd be awesome. And on top of it, if you're a punter, right, and the mentality of a punter, right, when you guys are kind of secluded, you guys want to do your own thing, you're off to yourself, how difficult would that be in the media if you had to answer questions all the time in the media? Because it seems like special teams guys do not answer questions. There's nothing to talk about. You guys just kick and you do your thing. How difficult would that be if you had to communicate and talk about with the media all the time and get that level of attention and still try to do your job?
Yeah, to answer your first question, Matt was just a very strong punter. Had an explosive leg. It helped that he played in San Diego State. The weather down there is pretty consistent, beautiful. So it was a little surprising when we went to Buffalo because we know how different of an environment Buffalo can be. But I think what happens is punters and kickers, especially as young players, they still don't know. Teams don't know how they're going to develop. You don't know if you're going to turn into a Robbie Gould or you're going to turn into a one-year-and-done guy, even though you're drafted. Draft picks always tend to get the benefit of the doubt. They give a few years to make sure that they don't look bad as an organization on wasting a draft pick, and it makes people look good if eventually your draft picks turn out. But as a specialist, the only time we really want to be in the news is if we're doing something well. And if you're in the news for anything by shank punts or doing something in your personal life that in Matt's case was significant, it didn't surprise me that the team cut him at the time. That's pretty consistent with what we see now and today with sports and teams wanting to keep their reputation and not wanting to do it distractions. And it's all about distractions. I think, at the end of the day, I'm very happy for Matt and his family. I think that for him, to get, not convicted of something like this, which would definitely affect him, his family for the rest of their lives, obviously is just a good thing. I mean, it's just, he's free now. He's ready to go back, and his reputation hopefully will be restored with time. But as a player, it doesn't have to be a specialist. GB, this, distractions are one thing, but football is just a sport we play. It's something we get paid. It's no different than anybody else waking up, and me in insurance business now going to do our job. But at the same time, your family's the most important. And I'm happy that this is behind him. And I got to think that someone like Matt at his age will get some more opportunities, hopefully, to get back and do something he loves doing. That's punting the football.
Dave, we got two more. We'll let you out of here. This is something I've always been curious about, and I understand that they're two different skill sets, but at the end of the day, it's both kicking football. Why don't we see any punter-kicker combos in today's day and age? I know Pat McAfee, I think, might have been the last one to try it on the NFL level, but why is that an extinct creature in today's NFL?
Well, that's a good question. You see a lot more punters kicking off now. Pat did that. You see, I think Bradley Pinion, big, strong punter, does that, and a few others. There's a guy that a long time played for Detroit. I can't remember his name, but that's very common because punters typically are taller guys, got a little bit longer legs, and they have that ability on the kickoff to generate that power. And a lot of the kickers you see today, and even when Phil played, was older guys, and teams want to save their legs. And as you got in your mid-30s, upper 30s, that guys like Robbie Gould are, who I think still does kick off. He's kind of one of the rare ones, but you could have a young punter come in that has a heck of a leg, and now that you're kicking off from the 35-yard, not the 30, they can go out and just kick that in the end zone any time and save the kicker. But when I was being drafted in 2002, there was a guy named Travis Dorsch from Purdue that we went to the combine together. We did all these camps or whatnot. He was a kicker and a punter, and so they didn't really know which one that they were going to go with, or if he could do both. The problem is, you only have so much endurance in your leg in a practice to work on your craft. And if you have to do an entire practice that I know I do and kick my routines punting, and then stop and then go out do a full kicking routine, you're going to probably wear your leg out, probably easily middle of season, definitely late in season. And it's a lot on your legs, especially when you're doing it with kickoff. So I think at the end of the day, punters typically hold. They can kick off. Kickers could kick off. And I think if anything, it allows you more time to get more consistent on your craft. And punters today are about as good as I've ever seen them. So I think that's probably my guess on why you don't see a lot of guys do both.
Gotcha. We'll get you out of here on this, Dave. But DeQuell Jackson is a friend of the program. He comes on every Friday. He sat in all three of these chairs, actually. I have a bottle of bourbon in my car for him waiting. And I know you played with him for 4 years in Cleveland. DeQuell swears that he considered the special teams guys part of the team. He did not exclude them. He said him and Phil Dawson were close. Do you have a DeQuell story that we could bust his chops with on Friday? Don't hold back.
Make something up.
Well, first of all, I'm a bourbon guy myself, so I'd be very curious on what kind of bourbon you're leaving DeQuell. But no, DeQuell was a great friend of mine when we played together. I just loved him as a person, loved him as a player. We get together at some events still, and seeing his family, and he's just very happy for the accolades he got and getting into the Browns. I think it was the alumni team or whatever. I know I probably will never get it, so I can't remember the name. But no, DeQuell, stories with him, there wasn't really a funny story about him because he took the game. He took such a business-like approach to the game. He was our leader at linebacker. He was fast. He had great instincts. And for us in my time in Cleveland, and quite frankly, throughout my career, special teams guys always fit in with the team because I think everybody respected, guys like Phil Dawson, the guys like Adam Vinatieri, the Shane Lechlers of the world, because they were so impactful for those defensive teams to pin them deep, get those safeties, and allow that offense to get back on the field. So you hear a lot of rumblings in the media about, oh, he's just a kicker, and that's going back to the Vanderjack Manning days. In today's football, I think that you'd be surprised by how respected the kickers and punters are within the locker room. But I always joke and I tell people, hey man, somebody's got to do the job, so why not me? But then the funny thing is, all my teammates will go, hey man, I'm gonna get my kid to learn how to punt and kick, man. That's what I'm gonna do. And I'm like, hey, listen, you make fun of us in the media, but then you want your kids to do it. So. But no, DeQuell was one of my favorite teammates of all time, and I think he knows that.
Awesome. Well, Dave, I'll get with you offline. We'll talk bourbon, and maybe we can get you a bottle just like we got DQ. Thank you for taking some time. Thanks for sharing some light on your time with G. Bush. And anytime you want to come back, Dave, you're more than welcome to join us here on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
Yeah, hey, guys, I love listening to GB. You're doing a great job, man. Love following you, and I wish you guys the best of luck.